Greetings, everyone. DFG here, Gideon's Flight. Hey, guys, I'm not in the habit of defending certain idiots. And in this regard, I'm talking about, Kanye West. He made a comment just the other day saying that the 13th Amendment should be repealed. If I'm quoting him correctly, if I misquote him, then I'm sure one of you guys can correct that, but you know exactly what I mean. Now, when you listen to him, it sounds asinine, in the beginning. Like, what do you mean? Are you trying to imply again, Kanye, that slavery was a choice by so-called black people? We know they were the Aboriginal people, but we're not gonna get into that. Because we know there was controversy there, and then he, I guess he tried to clear it up, and now here it is again. Here's Kanye again, or who we perceive to be Kanye. Again now provoking another initiative or an issue to get everybody talking around, the 13th Amendment or slavery, the subject of slavery. Well, let me tell you something, guys. As asinine as he is, he's not too far off of the truth. Now, if you're still listening to me, that means you want to know where I'm going to take this, right? So let me take it to you. Let me take you right to where I should be taking you. This book, if I can get this, sure. Oh, there you go. It's the great book it's the book of Great American Documents, and the book, has many different things, and it has the fundamental orders of 1639, Declaration of Independence is in here, Ordinance of 1787 is in here, the Constitution of the United States is in here. The Bill of Rights, it's in here. Jefferson's first speech, Emancipation Proclamation, Gettysburg Address, Lincoln's second inaugurational speech, John Kennedy's inaugural speech, etc. Okay, so just so you know where I'm reading from. So you can always go look this stuff up yourself, all right? So don't accuse me of shooting from the hip. What I give you is facts as I've researched, studied, and understand them, okay? All right, but this is the 13th Amendment. See if I can put that close up to you. Now, if you're looking at that, it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to its jurisdiction. Now, see that part, whereof neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except, that key word, except as punishment for a crime. All right, so it's saying that slavery is abolished except if you commit a crime. So in essence, a convict is a slave. Simple and plain. That's the 13th Amendment. That's not me making it up. The 13th Amendment simply means that if you're a convict, you're a prisoner, you are a slave. Okay? And so when you start looking at this, now I'm going to connect this dot for you because again, that's the 13th Amendment that was passed, okay? Now I'm going to take you to right after the 13th Amendment was passed. You want to know what was the attitude of America towards the so-called slaves? Well, there was something that came right at 1865 called the Black Code. Black Codes, look it up when you get a chance. Well, let me read to you what the Black Codes are right quick. The Black Codes enacted immediately after the American Civil War, though varying from state to state, were all intended to secure a steady supply of cheap labor. Cheap, the key word, labor. And all continue to assume that the inferiority of the freed slaves. There were vagrancy laws that declared a black person to be a vagrant if unemployed and without permanent residence. So if you didn't have a job, you went to prison. If you didn't have a place to call home, you went to prison. How ironic. You don't have a job because you were free. Your job used to be a slave. You didn't have a home because your home was on the plantation. So they freed you from the plantation, which means you had no job. Freed you from the plantation means you had no home. And then they turned around and said, if you did not have a job, you did not have a home, guess what? You're going to jail. Oh, I thought slavery was abolished. Now remember, this law is to so-called freed blacks. Let me continue. I think I made my point, by the way. There were vagrancy laws that declared that a black person to be a vagrant if unemployed and without permanent residence. A person so defined could be arrested, fined, and bound out for a term of labor if unable to pay the fine. Portions of the vagrancy law enacted by the state legislature of Mississippi, in this case in 1865, provided this example. Be it further enacted that all freemen, free Negroes, and mulattoes in this state over the age of 18 years old found on the second Monday of January 1866 or thereafter with no lawful employment or business are found unlawfully assembling themselves together either in the day or nighttime. Now think about it. Those were the same laws that the slaves had in place, or the plantation owners had for slaves, okay? The exact same laws. And all white persons who assembling with freemen, Negroes, or mulattoes are usually associating with freemen, free Negroes, or mulattoes on terms of equality, or living in adultery or fornication with free women, free Negroes, or free mulattoes shall be deemed vagrants and convicted thereof. So white folks, any white person who interacted with anybody black after 1865, you were a criminal. You couldn't be friends with them. You couldn't go out with them. You could not marry them. You could not even sleep with them. If you did anything like that, you were a criminal as well. And guess where you went? Oh, to prison as well. But just associating with the 13th Amendment laws of free slaves, right? Very similar to pre-Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, let me go a little farther. All right, and then it goes on to say, shall be fined a sum not exceeding, in the case of freemen, free Negroes, mulattoes, of $150 and a white man $200, and in prison at the discretion of the court, the free Negro not exceeding 10 days and the white man not exceeding 6 months. So white folk, you got more time than the black folks got. But there's a caveat here. You say, well, he only went to jail for 10 days. Let me read a little farther here. Section 5, be it further enacted that all fines and forfeitures collected under the provision of this act shall be paid into the county treasury for general county purposes, and in the case of any free man, free Negro, or mulatto, they made sure they got everybody, shall for 5 days if they should fail for 5 days to pay the fine, it will be considered a forfeiture, and they would have to go to jail, okay? It says, any provisions on this act to pay the same that it shall be, and here I've made the duty of the sheriff or the sheriff and police again. Here we come again, the slave catchers. And that's why, don't get offended when we call them that. I know some of you guys don't like that. I'm not anti-police. But when people associate slave catchers and police officers, sheriffs and police officers, don't get offended, because there is a direct association between the two. Hear me. Being crystal clear here. That it shall be and hereby made the duty of the sheriff of the proper county to hire out said freeman, free Negro or mulatto, to any person who will, for the shortest period of service, pay said fine and forfeiture of all costs. And all costs. So in essence, you had 5 days to come up. Now you don't have a job, you don't have a place to live, and you got 5 days to come up with $150 in 1866. I'm going to say that again. You got 5 days if you don't have a job, because that's why you got arrested in the first place. If you don't have a home, so you can't, put your property up or mortgage your property to get the money. So you got 5 days to come up with this money. And if not, the sheriff can sell you back to the plantation owner or lease you back to the plantation owner. So that's where the lease prison program came into play. Can send you back to the slave plantation, and now you're the property again of the state and the plantation owner. But now he doesn't have to provide any kind of civil housing for you. He doesn't have to take care if you get ill. He doesn't have to take care of medical costs. Oh, now you you went from chattel slavery, a piece of his property, now to a piece of his labor. Simply meaning, it's like if you buy a tool and that tool breaks, you just throw it away and you go get another. And this happened many, many, many times. Okay? So when you look at these black codes and you say, okay, but that was only for 2 years, and then they came in Reconstruction and they put it away. You're right. But guess what? by 1874, the black code, the black code, the black codes just transitioned over to Jim Crow laws, and they put it right back in place. The Republicans, Democrats, when they made a backdoor deal and said take the Union troops out of the South, who were enforcing, laws that would not allow this to happen, and then allowed it to start happening again. And the next time any kind of rights came to so-called black people was, guess what? 1964. So from 1874, almost 100 years, to 1964, these black code, Jim Crow laws were in place. And nothing changed from what I read to you earlier. So if a white person was interacting with you, or if you married a black person and you were white, you went to prison. And guess what? If the white person had the money, they had 6 months to come up with the money to get out. Black person had 10 days more or less, right? Well, really 5 days to come up with the money. White person fine was $200, and surely most whites were as poor as blacks were back then. And that's why I say, blaming all white people for slavery is like blaming, grass for rain. We wouldn't have any grass if it wasn't raining. All whites did not have slaves. Most whites did not have slaves. I would tell you that you probably had, you're not going to like this, but you probably had as many blacks who had slaves as whites who had slaves during that period of time. Now, granted, they didn't get the privileges of the whites, because it didn't matter whether or not you had money. You were still considered a black person, a free man of color. All right? I digress. I just want to be sure. I want to be fair and balanced here. Because, there's a lot of people who go around, they're blaming everybody white for slavery. Everybody white didn't have anything that were not a part of slavery. They may have been a part of, a lot of them were a part of Jim Crow laws. So you don't have no clean hands here, white man, white woman. And I've showed you some of those pictures, these picnic parties, where they pick a nigga and everybody standing around and had a big carnival while you guys stood there, or some of your ancestors stood there and watched these people swinging from trees. Okay, let's call a spade here. So you wasn't like your hands were clean. You were bigots and you were hateful. Not all of you, but most of you, your ancestors were, and some of you still are. Because you still harbor those anti-black feelings deep in your heart. You just try to hide them. So that's why whenever we're around, you don't look at us, or you look the other way. You know what I'm saying? Or whenever our names, or we come up in conversation, you seem to have this, this inconsistency of opinion, or you get quiet as crickets, when some of these atrocities are committed, and you're quick to tell us it's our fault, like this stuff is not systematic. And again, you look at the prison industrial complex. Obviously, how can less than 6% of the population, black males, represent almost 60% of the prison population unless the 13th Amendment is not still in play? So that's what Kanye meant. Okay, that's what he was talking about. Not trying to clean up Kanye's ignorance, but we need to know and we need to be informed. And we need to understand this. And this back to people of color, aboriginals, I'm telling you, now you talking about you free and you're independent and you're, and all these things, then you need to be understanding clearly that this system of slavery is still set up and they want you back in the penitentiary. So you will have to train your children, black fathers and mothers, aboriginals, Native Americans, people of Turtle Island, copper color. You need to be talking about these things with your family, with your children. Get this information out. Open up your computer, do some research, study. The scripture teaches you, study to show yourself approved, a workman that needed not to be made the fool of. Okay? And right now, we're being made a fool of talking about what constitutional rights we have, when at the end of the day, those rights were not applicable to you. You're kind of grafted in sometimes when it's convenient for them. Running for election, we're going to talk about black crime. After election over with, I'm out of black church. Excuse my language, let them niggas go kill themselves. Okay? Help me. Love you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Talk to you soon. DFG, get in flight.